It's a Thursday at 3 p.m. You know what that means. Time for another best ball draft. In the world of stochastic, we're competing for $15 million in total prizes on DraftKings. Once again, 20-round draft, PPR draft. The big thing is that money up top, $2 million to first place playing on DraftKings. And of course, I'm all in the draft room here. And shout out to all you guys who are watching live or after the fact. Know there's a lot of best ball content going on because we are officially in August. We're in the home stretch. 28 days until NFL season starts, so you need to get into things right now. If you are trying to get your best ball entries in, certainly need to start making that work for yourself, especially if you're trying to max things out. But in particular, one thing I always want to talk about in the top of the videos, if people are rewatching after the fact or if you're watching live, 3 general rules of thumb in best ball, because stochastic, of course, the world of DFS provides you such great information. And best ball, it's not as easy to figure out with projections, sims, the tools that give you that real advantage. You see people winning $50,000, more than that a lot of times in the world of stochastic every single day. In best ball, you don't have that same stuff. So these 3 rules of thumb will hopefully take you a little bit closer to the pay window in the world of best ball. Number 1 is average draft position. You can see here, Jamar Chase going at the 1-1 or the 101, but also has a 1.1 ADP. When you have a chance to take Jamar Chase, you should usually do it for the most part, unless you are getting in 150 entries. You are trying to get some different looks to make sure you get enough Bijan Robinson, enough Saquon Barkley, enough CeeDee Lamb. But ADP is basically your equivalent of your projection, your ownership projection as well, rolled into one, basically telling you that if the guy is being drafted in the first 200 picks, he's likely going to be owned in every single league out there, about 8% exposure overall. That's what ADP tells you overall. So it's an important thing. It's a market price as well. Really, it all factors in together. It's the world of average draft position. So we wait for this guy to pick. Number 2, stacking and correlation. You guys know in DFS, you're trying to pair your QBs, your wide receivers with your tight ends. In best ball, you can do even more than that. You can have more receivers, more tight ends, have RBs with it as well to try to capture that rising tide of a team's offense. So stacking and correlation, very important in best ball. And I would say arguably even more important than it is in the world of DFS on a week-to-week basis, given some tournament sizes out there. But we are up here. Bijan Robinson, a guy I would be happy to get some exposure to here. Guy I certainly expect to have an outlier year for an Atlanta team that should be worlds better this year, in my opinion. Michael Penix, a guy I think's got a lot of juice, a lot of downfield aggressive throwing as well. That should put Bijan into position. Apparently his name is Bijan, by the way. I always want to say Bijan because Dijon is always in my head, but it is Bijan, and I'm trying to do the thing here. I won't give Tet McMillan. I won't say Tetaroa McMillan every single time. That one I'm not giving in on, but saying Bijan is something I'm working on because I want to make him happy in case I do have a lot of him this year in best ball. Rule 3 here, and this is really the important one. I think the one that people get most bogged down by. So talk about average draft position, talk about stacking. Rule 3 would be expected values realized in week 17. So a lot of people, especially on social media, get caught in this sort of, I'll say it way too early in this video, but the dick measuring of like, my advance rate was this. This means I know so much more football. And sure, I didn't win any money. Sure, I didn't advance in the playoffs, but I advanced so much here into the playoffs that makes me a really good drafter. And yes, advance rate is one way to look at people's skill as a drafter, but really for these formats here with DraftKings, some of the other sites out there as well, really every site out there that has best ball, you're playing for week 17. You're playing for that big money that's paid out at the end. If you advance in week 15 into the playoffs, you're winning basically your entry fee back a little bit more than that, depending on the site you're playing on. But if you are, again, competing in week 17 in that 1,000-person final on DraftKings, a little bit of a different size, some other sites out there, you're competing for $2 million to first place. Top 10 finishers win $100K. That's what you really want to win the money on. Getting into the playoffs doesn't really matter. Obviously, the more teams you have in the playoffs, theoretically, the better chance you have of one of your little turtles getting back to shore. But in reality, having teams that are built for tournaments that have week 17 correlation, if you can make that work, that have stack partners, that have proper draft capital aligned here, that isn't too RB heavy, it also isn't too wide receiver heavy, where you kind of ignore RBs till too late and end up with guys that aren't going to actually make your lineup on a weekly basis or give you enough projection on a weekly basis. And again, you guys are on stochastic, so you should know this stuff pretty well. The constant projections. Build well-projected teams that will hopefully stand the test of time in week 17. And that doesn't mean going all rookies. It does mean maybe having some rookies in there for upside. But it does mean building a team that you expect to really be coming together, hitting its stride week 17. And really, different looks at it too if you're putting in 150 max like you can on DraftKings this year. Shout out to the chat as well. We got, Rashawn Slater hurt for the Chargers. Not great. Looks like potentially a season-ending injury kind of thing. He's a guy that, again, I'm really a big believer in the expected points added metric stuff. I use Sports Info Solutions, a partner I worked with back in my days running Football Outsiders. Been really a great asset to my overall viewing of football and how I understand things. But EPA, an important metric to know, I think, in general, if you are trying to be smart about football and understand on a higher level of who's adding value, who's taking value away. I saw somebody on tweeting actually right before the show, Rashawn Slater added about 0.1 EPA per play being on the field. So in terms of alignment's ability to affect things, Like, it's about as good of one as you're going to have. And for a team like the Chargers that wants to be able to run the ball, wants to also be multiple and able to pass out of those play action situations, losing an important offensive lineman, not a great thing to see. So not great. How to find out when Spag is entering the draft. If you sign up for my OddsShopper Tails package or join my Splash Play channel at Splash Play Pod, either way will get you into my Discord, and then you can see alerts there. Basically, whenever I have a stream going up, the moment I'm going in, you'll see the stream alert, and I'll tag everyone and say 5 out of 12 spots on DraftKings, as was the case before the show. So normally not trying to have people in every single stream room, but I understand if you guys that really want to go above and beyond and be in my rooms more often, that's the way to do it. All right, so we're up again here. We took, again, Bijan Robinson, pick one. I've been on this beaten path for a while. The Bijan Bucky Irving path, I've said, is one of my favorite duos to get at the top of a draft, and then you can just reel off receivers afterwards. And it has an added benefit as well that both Bijan and Bucky Irving have different bye weeks, as opposed to Saquon Barkley and Bucky Irving that both have week 9 byes. So we are going to go a Bucky Bijan start. Whenever I have the opportunity to do that, I'm going to take it, and I'm taking it here. So definitely an RB picky start for me, which I normally would make fun of in previous years. But look, we all know at this point, or hopefully we all know, and if you're watching best ball a lot, you should hopefully know it better than others. We're building teams now, trying to be more balanced in 2025 because of where ADPs align, and also being mindful of the fact that really just comes down to if you take 2 running backs early, that just means you have to add a lot more receivers in the middle of rounds here, add some more volume towards that position, try to get there still, getting 5 guys or top 100 picks if you can. We're on the clock again. T. Higgins comes back. The elite QBs, certainly interesting as well with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. But I think we want to start grabbing receiver. T. Higgins, certainly a guy that, certainly a Emacs chat, which made me laugh. Certainly a guy that I feel pretty good about getting with T. Higgins when I have Jamar Chase. If I don't have Jamar Chase, I have pretty good leverage against him. And one thing with T. Higgins that people will miss, and it's the fact that he's not as exciting of a receiver for fantasy, for real life, as Jamar Chase is. Higgins grades out very similarly to Jamar Chase in terms of the volume metrics, the target earning metrics, all that stuff. Last year, T. Higgins, and of course, he did also miss some games amidst his ongoing contract stuff, and now he's gotten paid, so hopefully he'll show up. But a 0.4 EPA per reception for T. Higgins, 25.4% target per out run, 2 red zone targets, excuse me, not end zone targets. That'd be crazy. 2 red zone targets a game for T. Higgins, one of the better red zone roles in football. Overall, again, pretty good targets, 9.2 targets a game. For Jamar Chase, you heard me read those numbers, so I guess just keep them in mind when I read Jamar Chase's numbers in a moment here when I can filter through all the chases. All right, Jamar Chase, so 0.34 EPA per target, so a little bit less good than T. Higgins. 25.1% target per out run for Chase, basically the same thing. 2.1 red zone targets a game for Jamar Chase, basically the same thing as T. Higgins. And again, Jamar Chase has the explosive ability. He did get more targets per game as well, 10.3, a little bit higher than T. Higgins, 9 and change. But these guys are more similar than people want to realize, and certainly the ADPs with a 2-round difference here, then that accounts for. And in particular, we saw it last year in the fantasy playoffs where Jamar Chase is a really big advance rate piece for a lot of people in that first round. A ton of Saquon Barkley, Jamar Chase teams, a ton of Derrick Henry, Jamar Chase teams kind of came together in that way. Whatever you want to think about how people would draft with those guys coming up the first couple rounds. Those are the kind of teams that are floating around with their Bucky Irving, obviously a big advance rate guy as well. But Jamar Chase is one of them. And what you saw in the fantasy playoffs, people getting off reservation here. Mahomes at 34, reaching that far ahead of ADP, not a good move, given that Patrick Mahomes normally goes about pick 70 in a DraftKings room, sometimes could fall to the 80s, sometimes even the 90s if the room really doesn't like him. Taking him ahead of Jaden Daniels, who had an historic, basically, fantasy year, a historic rookie year overall, going to the NFC title game and carrying that team with it. Don't want to take Mahomes ahead of him. Don't want to take Mahomes out of Jalen Hurts. I think there's a case you could take Mahomes behind guys like Baker Mayfield even, but this guy's buying the offseason hype for Patrick Mahomes. But for Jamar Chase in the playoffs last year, basically what happened, you had a ton of teams advancing with Chase, and this is the part people don't get as well with the everything gets paid out in week 17. What happened was T. Higgins, I believe, spiked twice in the fantasy playoffs last year, put up, slate-breaking performances. He wasn't in every week 17 because he was, missed a ton of time. If you needed T. Higgins to produce the receiver and carry you through, you might not have gotten him, to the finals even. So that's another luck component of best ball and how things work out. But basically, you have Higgins, you have leverage on Chase. If Tyreek Hill goes nuts this year, If you have Jalen Waddle going to week 17, you feel pretty good about that as well as leverage. It's a really big value add of wide receiver 2s in best ball. And again, same thing in DFS. Like if there's a week where Jamar Chase is going to be projected for 25% ownership by Stochastic's data team, that's probably a week to consider playing T. Higgins. And that's the way that it goes in best ball as well, except you're making those bets over the course of a season. The guy takes Mahomes and Jaden Daniels. So he's, why not compound the error? Why not do that? I have no issue with taking Derrick Henry at 10. It's a little bit early, a little bit ahead of ADP. AJ Brown at 15 when he's been banged up lately. He's back in practice, but soft tissue injury this stage of the year. Maybe you have a little more concern. Don't take him early. He takes that guy early. Then you add an elite QB with Jaden Daniels. That's fine. If you're not taking the other QB, 40 spots ahead of ADP. And it's my thesis on DraftKings. No respect to the presenting sponsor of the stream here, DraftKings. You'll find about 2 to 3 dead teams in every DraftKings draft you're doing right now because people don't really know how to draft. So that's your benefit if you're following the rules that we talk about here. Keeping a projection mind like Stochastic has trained you for years. You'll do well in best ball with that stuff. This is a chat that made me laugh like a minute ago or 2 minutes ago, and I had to keep talking about the Jamar Chase Higgins thing. Basic game theory, but, got to spell it out sometimes. This is a replay of the B-Boys on Spag's team again. Yeah, look, if I had 5 to 10% of my lineups with Bijan and Bucky, I'd be stoked for that. I don't think it's going to happen naturally with how the drafts align. And people certainly taking Bucky a little bit earlier with reports that he might be a true bell cow back for this Tampa Bay team that's overhauling some stuff, mostly keeping the same things in line that were there with Liam Cohen last year. I'm a big believer in Bijan, big believer in Bucky. So if I get those guys together and make sure to make it up at receiver well enough after that, I'm happy to do it. DK Metcalf moved around the formation a lot for Pittsburgh. So it seems like so far in camp, guy who's also a really clearly defined number 1 receiver. And frankly, for whatever flaws Aaron Rodgers may have, and they're plentiful, I think both as a football player at the stage and maybe as a dude, I don't know. Is he actually married? I would ask that question. And that's a beard shame. But there's a lot of questions about him still. Things you could critique. How he played as a fantasy QB last year in terms of creating value for his receivers in particular, Garrett Wilson, sometimes Devontae Adams a little bit more when he got traded there. It was strong. And Metcalf, I think, could be a guy that's a little more, he's paid a ton more than Pickens was in this offense. They can get his work there. So we have a Bijan, Bucky Irving start, T. Higgins, DK Metcalf. Cortland Sutton adds to the projection pretty well. Getting George Pickens here. I would like to get some more exposure there, but I'm not sure I like him more than Cortland Sutton. Not as big of a believer in Dallas's offense. So I'll go Sutton here. Terry McLaurin at this stage, I'm not opposed to taking him, but he's falling pretty precipitously. I'd rather get him in builds where I try to get Jaden Daniels and then push McLaurin back around. So I'm not going to grab McLaurin here, even though I'm not. He's going to go back to the Commanders. Like, they don't want to trade him. They're a team that has Super Bowl ambitions, even though I don't know that they really should. And I love Jaden as much as anybody. I feel like they kind of luck box last year a little bit. But they have Super Bowl ambitions. They're going to bring McLaurin back. Most recent reports, and it's weird because it was definitely one of those things where they had David Aldridge, who's the Athletics beat guy now for the Commanders. I don't know how he got that job after being an NBA guy, but now he's, I guess, doing it for the Commanders. He had posted an article talking about Terry McLaurin's contract. It was so clearly fed by the Commanders front office about they're willing to pay a little bit more, and they're probably going to have to do that for McLaurin, but they don't want to pay him the full $30 million plus that DK Metcalf got. But it's close enough. They're going to get there at some point. I think within the next, if I had to guess, 2 to 3 weeks, certainly before the season, I would say at the latest point, McLaurin will get out there. So you could take him. If you're going to get him now at the falling ADP, you can make the case to always take him, I guess, but I think he's in an appropriate range right now with guys like Sutton, guys like Metcalf. So the build right now, again, that Bucky, Bijan Robinson start, which I'm very comfortable with. T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton. So no elite QB here. We passed up Joe Burrow, but that was a deliberate choice by me because, again, we took the 2 RBs early. You got to make up capital at receiver. I think we're doing that pretty well. And guys, if you want to draft teams along with me here or just get in the tournament, please do show some love. First of all, hit the like button, subscribe. Number 2, if you go down the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app right now, you'll hear a very important, fully formed legal read from Greg Ehrenberg at the end of this video. For right now, though, if you want to play on DraftKings, it's a good time to start doing it. They're going to have another Best Ball Week promo coming up as well. There's going to be a lot of deals to get more entries in down the home stretch. The tournament right now has been over 50% filled. If I had to guess, there'll be a pretty decent shot at there being overlay in the tournament as well on DraftKings, but no guarantee there. The big guarantee, though, is that you get guaranteed $50 million prize pool, $2 million to first place, one of the biggest prizes you'll ever win in the world of gambling. So that's stuff that excites me about best ball, along with the fact the format is not nearly as figured out as some other ones out there like DFS, with sites like Stochastic, of course, leading the way there. For best ball, there's a little more of a holding your finger to the wind, knowing ball kind of stuff. That's why I hold this football here. But play on DraftKings, good time to do it this year. And again, when you put in your first entry, get a second one for free. So if you haven't done that yet, at least get one entry in on DraftKings, get two, and then you'll have two lotto tickets that'll hopefully be fairly well formed if you're listening to the kind of general rules of thumb we talk about here. Spizwolf saying, hey, sir, I can't stop drafting Tony Pollard. I have a sickness. You're not, unfortunately, aligned with me on that one. Tyjae Spears is my highest exposed guy across every best ball platform. I have no issue with Tony Pollard. Going through the numbers again yesterday to kind of, 2 days ago on stream, actually. And I did a little bit afterwards, too, because I was like, you know what? I haven't really looked at the season-long numbers in a little bit, and you kind of develop priors in your head, and you want to fact-check against that. I usually try to do that when I talk about a guy on stream. What stood out for Tony Pollard when going through the numbers last year, he was just shy of 20 intended touches a game, 19.7 a game, including his rushes and his targets. So that's what intended touches is. He also had 2.1 red zone rushes a game. The concern for me is I do think at this stage, Tyjae Spears has more juice. I mean, Pollard only a 12% avoided tackle rate last year. I think Tyjae Spears is at like 19% offhand. I could check that. We want to give accurate numbers here. Tyjae's actually at 22.6%, so basically 23, a little bit higher than I thought. So we're talking about Tyjae being about twice as shifty. There's already been reports that they want to get Tyjae more touches this year. I think Pollard's your lead guy, but he's had the injury history. Like, I'm cool taking him, but, you know, I'm more excited by Tyjae at his price tag because if you guys didn't play best ball last year and you didn't play DFS at the end of the season even, you might not remember that Tyjae Spears is one of the top projected RBs in football, absorbing that Tony Pollard roll down the home stretch when he got hurt. This year you have Mullings coming in there. It's a guy that could maybe take some work away theoretically, but Tyjae is a guy I just really think has a lot of juice, special talent. He smoked USC in college and he was at Tulane in the Rose Bowl, which, yeah, I'm a USC alum. But, you know, one of those things for me where I think Tyjae is one of those guys that I think has a lot of juice, and Pollard, yeah, more in the Joe Mixon stage of his career. Pick 71 here. Romo Dunze comes back. And Mikek Buka is a guy I would like to get more exposure to because I have been a Chris Godwin slappy so far because I really strongly believe in how he played last year, finishing as a top 5 receiver for that stretch that we actually did play. He's got a lot of injuries, but I'm a little more cool with injury risk than other people out there will be. But Romo Dunze is here. I think this is a nice pick after ADP. Again, trying to make it up a little bit more at receiver. No real correlation at this point with the guys that we've drafted, but I think we've drafted well at receiver to make up for the fact we went 2 RBs to start. So I'll give the team a read in a moment here. We got one more pick coming up. I think taking a 5th receiver here would not be crazy. I think taking a 3rd RB here would also not be crazy to give us someone of quality to go along with this Bucky Bijan build. All right, this guy's thinking about it. All right, he takes Diggs. Diggs another guy I'd like to get a little more exposure to, though really not a priority. Montgomery here, again, after ADP, soaking up as much value as possible is your best pathway to building unique lineups in best ball. So that's what I'm going to do here. Montgomery, also a guy that, frankly, people have thrown him out with the bathwater for Detroit and the rise of Jahmyr Gibbs. And Gibbs is great, but David Montgomery still misses tackles, still gets goal line work. The timeshare should be closer to 60-40 favoring Gibbs this year, I would think. But God forbid Gibbs goes down. Montgomery is like, I mean, Montgomery will literally win best ball, I think, if Gibbs got hurt for any extended period of time. Not that we want that to happen. I want to see the fun guys play. But Montgomery, despite being less fun, he's still pretty fun. The team right now is a 0-3-4-0 build, so no QB, no tight end, but 3 running backs, 4 wide receivers. We got Bijan Robinson, Bucky Irving here, our killer bees up top, which is EMAC pointed out. I can't stop drafting, and I really do think potentially one of the combos that I would really like to go to war with in the finals this year. T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton is my 3 receiver start here. So because we took the 2 RBs early, want to make sure we're hitting receiver pretty hot and heavy after that. We did that here. Romo Dunze, wide receiver 4. I think we now covered enough receiver capital. We can go back to RB, dip our toes in there, take David Montgomery. I love this build. I like too that we have 2 elite running backs and another one that gets leverage on one of the other elite running backs. Not that you want to draft that way always, because I think there is a penchant to think like, well, what if I took Isaac Guerrero and then I get leverage on Christian McCaffrey? And what if I took Justice Hill and I've got leverage on Derrick Henry? And it's like, yeah, you could build a team like that. AJ Dillon and Will Shipley for Saquon. You don't want to get too like trying to lever against everything at once. Mixing it in across portfolio is more my move. That's how it goes. One thing I should victory lap here a little bit, because there's not a ton of, I feel like, exciting training camp news. We got the one big injury to Rashawn Slater for the Chargers, which sucks, but it's even that offensive line, it could still come together without a guy as important. Keenan Allen signing, though, and I actually have to give, again, really was happy to hear from my old pal EMAC. Of course, we're running EMAC and president again in 2028. We're rooting for him no matter whenever he's going to be in the vote here. But for EMAC, DM me immediately when Keenan Allen signed with the Chargers, and it's been a drum I've beat on the stream over and over again. The Keenan Allen's a guy I felt like going for free in these DraftKings drafts, round 18, round 19, round 20 in a lot of rooms. Other sites out there, round 17, round 18 is being available. The upside that he represented to me at receiver, even if he, knock on wood, and again, he's a guy I really don't want that to happen to. I don't know why I hit here for wood. There's no. This would be what you do if you're doing the joke, like, haha, my head's being out of wood. This is just rock hard steel. this is a real man of steel here. But for how it looks for that situation, really, I think I totally lost my train of thought with my stupid jokes. Point being is like, I lost completely. For EMAC, for EMAC and how that went, for reminding me about Keenan Allen. Number one, happy for EMAC to be the first guy to pat me on the back for it. Number two is that's really been one of the biggest drums I've beat on stream for literal months now. And basically what it was, and it's really a big lesson in basketball. That's what I was trying to get to before my brain farted trying to make shitty jokes. For Keenan Allen, he represented an upside that nobody else in that range really did. And I think there are guys now, I've talked about Torrey Horton on stream. I feel like people are kind of poo-pooing him a little bit, but he's moved up the depth chart. He's a guy that really graded out well in college before hurting his knee last year at Colorado State. Then he came out, was a freak athlete and all that. But how it is for, how that looks overall is like the late round picks normally don't have the upside of a guy like Keenan Allen who put up last year, I believe it was 5 20-plus point games. He was a guy that really disappointed me in best ball because he was my wide receiver 3 in a lot of teams last year. And it started so slow. Then the teams that did survive long enough, he hit in the playoffs, I think, for 20-plus points, I believe twice offhand. I don't want to misquote things, but it's not easy to pull up here. Those numbers offhand, quite a sass. You can look it up if you want, though. It's pretty close to that. Like, he gave, like, kind of tournament-winning lineups here, or at least, a guy that could have made a lineup for you down the home stretch last year, playing for Chicago team that still had DJ Moore. Granted, he was kind of throwing his hands in the air, walking off the field, not trying as hard. Still had Rome Odunze out there, rookie year for sure. But Keenan Allen was the top targeter under there, top fantasy performer. I think he still has value, and now you're seeing him come up. I know on DraftKings, on Underdog, he's gone to the 130s I've seen screenshots of. He might go higher in some rooms. I know there's some people have, I think, taken him ahead of Trey Harris, who normally is going in like the late 100 range, or was before. I think Keenan Allen, what you got if you took this guy before was a play that's now ascending an ADP, and it's not going to happen every year. It's not going to be the situations that always occur, even though it did happen earlier this year with J.K. Dobbins as well. Nobody was taking him. Then he signs the Broncos, comes up literally 120 spots. For Keenan Allen, though, it was kind of a play that I thought was pretty obvious, and I think you got to sometimes take the obvious play more than other people seem to want to. We're on the board here again. We're on the clock here again. Again, I think a good time to take another receiver. Chris Godwin, wide receiver 5, is pretty appealing to me. I don't know if BR Shrell is in the stream. Sometimes people are in the stream, they hear me talk. I'm going to try to push Godwin and hope that this guy doesn't want to take an out player right now. I'm going to try to go Jordan Mason instead, lock up RB4, because I think it's fun to have the week 17 correlation with David Montgomery, Jordan Mason. And then if I can get Godwin back, and DraftKings drafters usually hate seeing the out sign on a player, a Q tag on a player. Normally, they'll pass the guy up, but let's see what he does. Okay, so he doesn't take Godwin. So Godwin, to me, wide receiver 5 on a PPR site. I think an incredible pick. I'll absorb the risk here. Would have been happy to take Egbuka at pick 70. We're talking about the guy who's likely starting ahead of Egbuka, likely running routes ahead of Egbuka, going 30 spots after ADP. I think there's a logical fallacy there. So 4 running backs, 5 receivers start so far. We have to start making some picks at QB and tight end, obviously, but we're not there yet. So Bijan Robinson, Bucky Irving start. Again, good RB capital up top. I think we're done at RB for a while. T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, like that room right now at receiver. Rome Odunze, David Montgomery, Jordan Mason, Chris Godwin. So Rome Odunze is my wide receiver 4. I like that. I feel like he's normally a 3 for most people. Chris Godwin's my wide receiver 5. I hate seeing Godwin's ADP be this low because it's bad for my CLV. Closing line value, not good for me with how much I took Godwin earlier in drafts, but I'm a believer. I'm still a believer. I do have Superman on the brain. That's true. I've watched it 4 times over the last week. I think it's a beautiful movie. Beautiful movie if you want to, like the message of it, that positivity, kindness is the new punk rock. I can't adhere to it like Superman can. I can tell you that, but it's a nice message and I think a good one. And no spoilers there. Got a lot of spears too to see like Tony's often the last RB1 taken should be an improved offense. I agree. It'll be an improved offense for Tennessee. Big Cam Ward believer, even though the early returns in training camp have not been the most encouraging. That said, I think the talent's there. I think also Callahan's the kind of coach that I think is a strong enough one as well. Really cobbled together some Cincinnati offenses, the Jake Browning ones I've talked about on stream. That was like way more functional than it should have been. And it was awful too. When Jake Browning first took over and Burrow got hurt a couple seasons ago, it was like a dead offense. Browning had nothing. And they made it like Callahan made him better every week, made the offense tighter. So he had less errors, so lower error bar overall for himself. Big believer in that, Cam Ward's talent. And I think they're going to get there. Year one, I'm not sure, but certainly I think Cam Ward's going to be an upgrade on Will Levis said last year, like by a substantial margin. All right. Let's see. What do we think about is the best spots to draft a 10-man? I had this 10-man PPR league. I don't know. I don't do season long. I apologize. Again, Stochastic, more of a gambling forward channel here. I'm not really in the redraft streets that much. So you can play on sites like FFPC if you want to do a redraft thing for gambling. I don't really care too much about it. I would say probably you're better off in a 10-man league picking from the 5-hole absorbing value along the way in general. How I would pick from there, I don't know because I don't do redraft. But in general, I would say based on the parts that I do know, the math part, you want to go a little more RB heavy than you would in best ball for sure. At that range, you're picking the middle of the first round. If you can get one of Bijan, Saquon, Gibbs, I'd be cool with that. I'd probably go Henry over McCaffrey for a redraft league, but the PPR, I would certainly taking McCaffrey as well. Yeah, probably early RB. But again, this is not the right place. So, like, no disrespect, more power to you for your play there, but I could not care less. I want to win the money on DraftKings best. I want to win $2 million. I don't want to beat friends from high school. And also my high school league fell apart. We're all at 40 now. So people stopped playing a couple of years ago in my high school league, and I couldn't keep it going. As commissioner, I couldn't keep it going, and I also didn't care enough to keep it going because I was like, I found real gambling. I found DFS, which has won me enough money to buy a house. Found best ball, which has won me enough money to buy a very, very small Korean car. But I don't even know actually in 2025 price, but that's I think so. 5 figures would buy you a small Korean car. I'm pretty confident. Anyway, that's last year too. This year we're gonna buy a large Korean car with my winnings. All right, Tyjae Spears hanging around. This is again another nice RB pocket, but I really do have to stop taking RB. You need to also think about QB more because the rooms are panicky on DraftKings for grabbing QB. Guys like Caleb Williams already gone. It's not great for me. I mean, how diamond-handed can I be at this point? This is tough. I'm going to go one more receiver with Rashid Shaheed. Should have maybe just done a Christian Kirk, CJ Stroud stack and called it a day. Because right now, based on the receivers I've taken, we're looking at an Aaron Rodgers, Tyler Shuck / Spencer Rattler team, which is not what I want to do at QB. So we're going to have to backdoor stack a QB no matter what. All right, Tucker Kraft goes. Man, I wish I had better receiver correlation. I maybe should have thought about that in advance a little bit more. Stroud doesn't have a lot of backdoor options. Trevor Lawrence has Diami Brown, has Brenton Strange. I'm going to need tight end. I'm going to go Trevor Lawrence here, I think. Is that right? I think that's it. I think Trevor Lawrence will be the pick here. We'll see what we get on the way back. Just had to grab a QB and find a way out of this path here. So a 1-4-6-0 build. Trevor Lawrence, Bijan Robinson, Bucky Irving. I guess I could have taken Penix with Bijan, and that would have been enough of a correlation to feel okay about it. But I'd rather make a back stack here at this point. T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, Romo Dunze, then David Montgomery, Jordan Mason. And feeling like we've got enough capital at RB at this point. Chris Godwin, Rashid Shaheed, 6 receivers, honestly feels a little bit excessive. I think this team is more than made up at wide receiver capital. But we need to get QB right. So that's going to be my focus here, I think, at this play. I think Penix was the move. I think that's fair. I mean, look, for me, projection-wise, I would have Trevor Lawrence a little bit higher than Penix. I think the rushing upside is going to be substantially higher potentially for Trevor Lawrence if he is willing to get out there and run. Look at the runs per game last year. I think Trevor Lawrence ran a little bit out of desperation at the end of last year, or before he went down at least. Trevor Lawrence, no, only 2.3 rushes a game for Trevor Lawrence. Penix has to be even lower. Penix ran 1.0. That's not enough to tie break. I mean, Baker last year in a Liam Cohen offense, he ran like 5 a game, I think. More than he'd ever ran in his career. No, you know what? He only ran 3.1 times a game. I thought that was more. It's funny. I think it's one of the things too, and I've seen other people rather in my community in the Splash Play, of course, my YouTube channel, which I'll link in the chat so you guys can go check it out. But tomorrow I'll be doing a draft on all the big platforms in best ball. My try draft-a-thon I do on Fridays at 12 p.m. If you guys want to check that out. But it's happened before in my chat where like I've talked to somebody and been like, oh, this guy's like a rushing QB. And I'm like, I don't know that I'd call whatever player a rushing QB. And in general, like my rule of thumb would be like 5 rushes a game, you're a rushing QB. 7 to 10 rushes a game, you're like a real rushing QB. And like, one like Jalen Hurts, Lamar, Jaden, where the upside is there. And really there's a floor to it as well. So I guess in my opinion, there wouldn't be a ton of like true super elite rushing QBs by that one. The point being is like Baker Mayfield runs for 3.1. In my head, he's running for 5. That is a kind of a little bit of an error that people make is like you assume a guy runs more than he does because you've seen the guy run in games. For Baker Mayfield, like he's ran in high leverage spots in Bucs games. I watched a lot of Bucs last year because I thought they were a fun offense to watch and had enough fantasy investment week to week. And Baker took, some goal line runs more than you would think. Like he did things like that. But still 3.1 runs a game is you're talking about, almost 1/3 of what Jalen Hurts does. 1 less run per game than Kyler, who barely ran in his opinion last year. Bo Nix was at 4.5 per game. Josh Allen only at 5.92. Ran less than he ever has last year. Definitely ran a lot in high leverage spots, but I don't think you're getting the 100 rushing yard days or that kind of upside potentially from Josh Allen as much moving forward. And maybe you shouldn't either because he's getting paid the big money. All right, Penix goes here, I presume, to the Drake London drafter. Drake London guy takes Penix. Love that stack for him. His RB room, in my opinion, could use a little bit more in projection with Genty, Chuba, and Travion Henderson. But don't mind that team in the 12 hole. See, it's not always shitting on the teams. I do hate this move of this guy taking Justin Herbert early at pick 105. Took him with Ladd. Took Ladd early too when Ladd's probably got a fall in ADP because of Keenan Allen being on the team. It's basically one error I think people make a lot unless it's like a really big value and you have the correlation. You don't want to take both QBs from the same week 17 game. And it's an error that, frankly, I made a couple years ago because I was like, well, you could corner the market potentially on getting the best stack. You find that, that like 70-point total game, 60-point total game. I think having 2 cracks at it's kind of interesting. But in reality, what you benefit the most from is having 2 different QB stacks, having a bring back associated with that for week 17. That gives you the biggest upside for when you are in those small field tournaments because basically you could capture this game stack that maybe nobody else has, or it's just the one you needed to win. But if you have both QBs in the same game, you're getting that same game environment. So you don't really get another crack at another game environment. So just generally an error, I would say, again, if Stroud goes like 150 and you have Nico Collins, I get it. Going at this range, though, where you took Herbert early, took Nix early too, would not compound that error by taking another QB from the same week 17 game. Of course, Chargers and Houston playing in week 17 if you're not obsessed with those things like I am. All right, we're on the clock here again. Well, I thought this guy was going to pick. Just kind of felt like he had enough time and he was going to make his click, but no, he's going to time it out here. Tank Bigsby, nice click for him. I don't think this would have been a good Bigsby team for me, so that's fine. I am going to take a guy here. We have sort of the opposite end of the week 17 correlation, and it is a thing that I do when I feel kind of boxed out with my QB choices. Going to take Tua Tagovailoa. So Tua plays Tampa Bay in week 17. We have Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin. It'll be very easy to take Darren Waller at the end of a draft on DraftKings. Right now, he hasn't practiced yet, so people are really afraid to take him, but he seems to be on the pathway to doing that, so that's the main thing I'll say for him. That's a positive. We're not picking for a while here. I think I'm going to go up and get Brenton Strange. I like Brenton Strange more than I'm drafting him right now. I think it's been hard for me to pin down an ADP, but we want to get Jacksonville correlation. I don't need another RB like Bashal Tutin at this point. And a receiver, not sure what we're really getting when we have the 6 receivers there already that are really high quality. Guys like Quentin Johnston certainly got a bump down with Keenan Allen coming in. Kyle Williams seemingly safely behind the outside receivers and the slot guys in camp so far for New England. I'm cool taking Kyle Williams, but I don't need it here. I need the tight end more. So the room right now is a 2-4-6-1. Trevor Lawrence, Bijan Robinson, Bucky Irving, and still love to start here. Like my receivers a lot as well. T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, Romo Dunze. Then we just took Brenton Strange here to stack up with Trevor Lawrence. We got David Montgomery, Jordan Mason. So 4 RBs, all of the guys with, I think, good goal line equity teams that should score a lot of points this year. Really, the running back room, I don't think I even need a 5th. I probably will take one just because it's a 20-round draft, but these are the kind of rooms to me where you're probably better off just adding more at the other positions you feel less good about. But a receiver, we also have Chris Godwin, Rashid Shaheed. Again, really feeling a lot of firepower at receiver. QB, if I can get to 4 QBs in this room, I think I'd be happy to do it. I think, frankly, 4 QBs and 4 tight ends would not be unappealing to me here. 4 tight end builds give Robert Griffin III wood. I'm happy to do four tight ends on DraftKings as well. Don't often do 4 QBs, but in this room where my stacking and correlation is real light, we may have to get weird with it, but we'll see. The tough call, honestly, for late QBs at this point, for a team like mine, with Rashid Shaheed here, I'm not sure who starts for New Orleans. Like, I really thought it was going to be Tyler Shuck. Camp reports have been awful for Tyler Shuck. He's not running the offense well. Team looks like dog shit. Apparently looks a little bit less like dog shit with Spencer Rattler. That might mean Rattler starts week 1. It's hard to imagine Rattler starting the whole year. Still would think Shuck has to be out there at the very least, for the fantasy playoffs, if not much earlier than that. But Rattler, I think, at least has some juice. Like, he wasn't the dirt worst in football when he played last year. Let me look up his numbers. The only best ball show that will live on stream look up Spencer Rattler numbers. Negative 0.29 EPA per pass. Negative 0.21 EPA per drop back. Pretty bad. Catchable ball rate was 75.4%. It's not awful. It's better than a guy like Anthony Richardson, but it's not fantastic. On target rate, 61%. Again, also not as bad as Anthony Richardson, who was at 55% last year, but pretty bad relative to a pro QB. Rattler didn't show much. But he's probably better than Tyler Shuck, who also didn't show much. I don't know why people love Tyler Shuck so much. It's been one of the things to me that, like, I didn't get coming out of college. I really thought that Dylan Gabriel, a more appealing prospect. Browns ended up taking him much later. Jackson Dart, who the Saints could have traded up to get, infinitely more appealing prospect. They didn't go up and get him. They took Shuck, and I really thought, like, okay, Kellen Moore is a coach I like a lot. He knows what he's doing. Maybe he still does. Like, maybe Shuck will get there this year. Like, he really just graded out like a dog shit, like a Clayton Tune level prospect to me. Yeah, it's not, they don't view it that way, so we'll see. Spencer Rattler looks like Patrick Mahomes, but he throws like Brittany. Well, that's same political views. We don't know. And a blatant tank campaign for Arch Manning. Arch Manning, the latest reports, nothing to do with best ball, but his grandpa, Archie Manning, saying he's not going to come out this year, which, interesting to hear, I guess. But Peyton didn't come out early. Eli didn't come out early. So Manning's have enough money, and Arch is also making enough money in college where I guess he doesn't have to. But maybe if it's a team he wants to go to, then maybe he will. All right, we need a third QB here desperately, I think, and they've gotten gobbled up. Matthew Stafford would give us some opposite correlation for Atlanta. People terrified of taking him right now because of the back injury, even though he's apparently going to be good to go for week 1. I'm just going to add in I really like this team, and I think QB is a not great spot of it. So I'm just going to add on projection at QB, take Matthew Stafford. Again, not the biggest upside player in the world here. But at this stage of things, I don't really care. Like, frankly, I'm not going to go into war with Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa team at QB. I want to get more points in there, and Stafford at least give me some points. This guy now taking Sam Darnold. So that's one QB we cannot take here. Aaron Rodgers, though, is a guy that correlates with our team. We have the DK Metcalf bet. Aaron Rodgers, QB4. Yeah, this is a lot of. This is like a team that I don't. I don't think you're gonna see a lot of people build teams like this on stream this year. I could be wrong. I don't watch every best ball stream in the world. This is to me like what the big theory is and how I try to view things. Like, all right, we got two RBs that I feel really strong about: Bijan, Bucky Irving. Those guys should carry the water a lot. We have two guys where if things are really flowing here, Montgomery and Mason, they can make the flex. Maybe in some worlds where it's a bad game for Bucky and Bijan, maybe they can make the lineup at RB and give us some extra points. That's cool. Like the receivers here with Higgins, Metcalf, Sutton, Romo Dunze, Chris Godwin, Rashid Shaheed. I think that's a really great PPR team overall. And then you get Shaheed on top for more touchdown upside. QB, we have Trevor Lawrence stacked up with Brenton Strange. We need to add a lot more at tight end. But we have Tua, Stafford, Rodgers, all kind of pocket passers, but with the ability to at least spike to 20 fantasy points, if not 30. It's a weird team, but I think we got projection now at QB. It's a bunch of QBs are going to project for 12 to 18 fantasy points weekly. And that's enough to get going, I think, for this team. Really would have loved a more logical QB room. I really want to give you guys logical drafts here on stream on Stochastic because, look, it's a site where, like, legitimately, some of the people who found the site have made millions of dollars doing this. A lot of the content creators you see and watching this have made hundreds of thousands of dollars doing this. I hate doing things where it's like, this is not the conventional way to build. But this is what the room gave me, and that's a big part of best balls, like what the room give you. It gave me nice values at receiver, gave me an RB room I'm really comfortable with. Now I just got to get there at tight end, and I think we're okay. Jaden Blue to the 10, awesome. It's preseason. Did he tear his ACL? If he didn't tear his ACL or his Achilles, whatever. Doesn't help, but he's not winning the starting job now anyway, so it doesn't matter. Hopefully it's stand that you guys get from when you watch the streams more. But in preseason, like, you're just better off not panicking about injuries. I think you're also probably better not absorbing every injury like I do. It has burned me in the past, in particular. Soft tissue injuries like a couple years ago with Jerry Jeudy. He just had an awful year on the Broncos. I don't know if that's because of the hamstring or whatever. Cooper Kupp, when he had his hamstring injury a couple years ago. Obviously, McCaffrey last year, if he bought that dip with the Achilles stuff, would end up a lot worse. But, like, for injuries for the most part, guys are getting banged up this time of year. I mean, a couple days ago, it felt like every player was, in and out of practice with, like, guys like A.J. Brown having the hamstring. A lot of injuries that weren't even getting reported because so many people were hurt out there or, really even enacted in sort of the market pricing overall. And you're probably better off, like, to me, like, Joe Mixon is going to be one of my highest exposed guys at this point. And if he ends up retiring because of his foot injury, that'll certainly suck. But Nick Chubb has no juice. They're back to trying Damian Pierce in the first team because they have nobody else on a depth chart. And Mixon is a guy that has played through injury his entire career, has gotten good goal line work, got great volume last year for 20 touches a game. And like we talked about with Tony Pollard, there's just not a lot of guys that get that volume. I think you're better off taking Joe Mixon at pick 100 than Woody Marks, who is a rookie, but he was the least special USC running back I have seen in my now almost 20 years. Actually, no. Technically over 20 years. My freshman year was 2002. I was a 17-year-old when I went to step on the campus at USC. And then saw the best football years ever. And now it's hard to watch a team that sucks. But Woody Marks, though, is like the definition of that team now, where it's like just a fucking mediocre back. I think he was a transfer back too from the portal. Really just got a ton of volume, was not special. And now people are like, this is the answer here. He's guys going to get pass down work. And it's like, he wasn't even good getting pass down work at USC. What does he do in the pros here? I don't know. That's injury tolerance for you, though. People want to get the shiny new thing. They want to get the guy on the upswing. And certainly if Woody Marks gets Joe Mixon's entire role from last year, he'd probably pay off no matter how good or bad he is. If you get 20 touches a game, you're going to pay off a 177 ADP that this guy took him at. But people don't want to take Mixon, and that's how it goes. Chubb's your most drafted RB. Hopefully he gets a good workload. Reports have not been great. He hasn't gotten to the second level at all in camp, or what they've been saying. And then he also got hurt recently or was banged up recently and not practicing. But look, I thought Chubb would get some work in there. Like Mixon last year would sub out. They'd bring Ogunbowale in before they got rid of Cam Akers. Kind of by mutual decision there. They would give him some touches. But, we'll see. Cade Otton. I think a pick for me here. Mason Taylor, another one who I'm okay with as well. But Cade Otton, we've got the Tampa Bay bet. Miami obviously stacked up. Not stacked up. We've got Tua as a week 17 correlation. Taking Cade Otton here makes sense. And we are going to, again, add 4 tight ends because I could live this receiver room, keeping it at 6. I could live this QB room. And I love this RB room. My tight end room, though, I cannot live with. Diami Brown is here, though. I mean, we could still add 2 tight ends. Diami Brown gives us more Jacksonville correlation. So I'm going to take him as wide receiver 7. Feel like this is a luxury, but I don't need to take all tight ends in the draft. So Diami Brown here going to be my last pick on this turn. A 4-4-7-2 build now. The team is Trevor Lawrence, Bijan Robinson, Bucky Irving, T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton. Tight end is Bretton Strange, and also now Cade Otton. Then we also have on top Rome Odunze, David Montgomery, Jordan Mason, Chris Godwin, Rashid Shaheed, Tua Tagovailoa, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Cade Otton, Diami Brown. Yeah, look, I think the team could be better correlated. It's my biggest critique of myself here. But I think in terms of balancing draft capital, it'll work. And does it have the upside to win in a week 17? Like in the way that you want to have a team perfectly put together, like all these QBs stacked up with, opposing players for week 17? No, it doesn't have that. So that'd be the one thing that's really missing here. Thoughts on Waller? Very bullish with him being free in drafts. Certainly a guy that I think will have 2 touchdown upside in this Miami offense. I also think Tyreek is maybe not long for playing competently, given the fact he barely did it last year. I don't love a situation where Tyreek gets moved off the team, because I think that at that point that would throw off the arithmetic a little bit, but Tyreek just being kind of bad again and Waddle not making a big leap forward, I think it'd be great for Waller. But no matter what, I think really the big thing with Waller right now is that he hasn't practiced yet. Because he was retired last year, people kind of have this fear in their head he's going to just all of a sudden disappear again. But in reality, like with what Johnny Smith leaves behind in that role, where he got good goal line work, good red zone work, got designed targets, was targeted at a decent rate, you're probably just better off taking shots on Darren Waller, especially given the fact he's free. So he's been a popular part of my 3 tight end, 4 tight end builds, whether it be on DraftKings, 3 tight ends on sites like Underdog where it's 18 rounds. I actually like Waller a good amount. I don't know my overall exposure to him right now. Let me check that. So I'm curious about that because I feel like I've been taking a lot of Waller in slow drafts I've been doing. Those are my lower dollar drafts usually. Let's see. On DraftKings, actually, I've got 17% Waller heading into today on DraftKings. On Underdog, I've got 9% Waller overall. 7% in Best Ball Mania, so a little bit lower in the high dollar big tournament on there. Then Drafters, who does some stuff with me on my Splash Play channel, and that's full point PPR total points. I've only got 3% Waller on there. So I'm in fact highest on Waller on DraftKings right now, which is how he aligns with the 20 rounds and the ADP and all that. 2% Chubb of 260 teams, 0 Komet. I could take Komet on DraftKings. I don't think I have any Komet on Underdog. Because again, Underdog, usually a lot of tournaments on there, 18 rounds. DraftKings, you're getting 20 rounds here. So a little more ability to kind of build fully fleshed out, well-rounded teams, I would say, when you have the extra 2 rounds. That said, I think that Komet's pretty draftable on DraftKings as a 4th tight end, as maybe a 3rd tight end where you have 2 that are pretty decent above him. He's a guy that's also got called out this week by Ben Johnson for having some of the best red zone playing so far, I guess, in practice. I don't know, playing's not the best word, but he's been like most available in the red zone, I think was sort of closer to what the quote was. Like he's getting open in the red zone as much as, guys like Odunze. There's somebody, there might have been DJ Moore was the other guy. So nobody too surprising. If he's got any sort of touchdown equity there, like Colston Loveland should be a red zone threat based on just how he plays. But Komet's certainly trusted and still getting paid enough at tight end that they could definitely feed him some targets. All right, Waller came all the way back. What I didn't want to say when I was talking about Waller was that I was secretly hoping he would come all the way back, and he does here. So Darren Waller, tight end 3 for me. Still absolutely taking a 4th tight end with a room of Bretton Strange, Darren Waller, and Cade Otton. I think that room is actually not bad as a 3 tight end room, but we have 20 rounds on DraftKings. So if I have a wide receiver room where I feel good enough about it, if I have an RB room, I feel good enough about it, attack the rooms that suck. So I attacked my QB room, now attacking my tight end room. That's how I'm trying to get to reasonable projections for my teams. And I have like 7 receivers. And like, frankly, the top 7 here receiver is a lot better than I've had in general in 2025. So I'm really comfortable just kind of throwing a little bit more at tight end here. I think Theo Johnson's the biggest upside click here at tight end again. Juwan Johnson, a little more of a projection play. And you know what? We have some New Orleans bet here with Rashid Shaheed. So let me go Juwan Johnson instead. But at this stage, again, if you are like me on DraftKings digging out at tight end, look how many guys I got here who are starters. Like with Waller, you want to absorb some risk there, whatever. I get it. But Cade Otton, Darren Waller, Theo Johnson, did reach for Brenton Strange to make sure I got him as part of this Jacksonville stack. But even if I didn't take Strange, like I think with a Cade Otton, Waller, Theo Johnson, Juwan Johnson, one more on top, like Theo Johnson here, I'd be cool with that room as well. So I think that's what you can do at tight end. You can't do it any other position. Like you can't add on 4 QBs super late, like later than I did, and feel good about that. You can't add on 4 RBs late, feel good about that. You can't add on 4 receivers late, certainly, because you got to get early receiver capital in, almost more important than running back. It's the only position you can do with a tight end. So I do it a lot. Yeah, I have gone ham on Waller and DK. That's true. Just really, Jonnu Smith had too good of a role. It's odd to me they got rid of Jonnu Smith. Like they didn't want to pay him, didn't maybe have enough money to pay him. And again, people I think expect Waddle to get that opportunity. And I guess, if the role kind of becomes, again, a Durham Smythe kind of role where the tight end's basically doing nothing out there, then, it's possible. But Johnny last year, 0.34 EPA per target. So we're talking about high-level receiver efficiency there. 27.5% target per out run. He was targeted more per route than not Darren Waller was, than Tyreek Hill was, than Jalen Waddle was. Not that Waller is going to be targeted the same way as Johnny Smith, because a lot of his stuff is catch and run things. But that was like a real role they carved out for tight end. And he had 1.1 red zone targets a game. Like if Waller gets you 1.1 red zone targets a game and his hamstrings hold up and, the retirement, he doesn't retire again, doesn't make another shitty rap album that takes him away from the game, because it's selling too many records of his horrible rap. He's going to be out there doing things that are meaningful. So it's that. Who do they get the RB2 spot in Indy, Giddens or Herbert? It's been Giddens already all of training camp. So Giddens. People hold a lot of priors for Herbert because he was like good for them a couple of years ago in Chicago, and he spiked a little bit. But he really showed he's not a special back anymore in Cincinnati. He's a Tank Bigsby level catastrophe, like rookie year Tank Bigsby level catastrophe. For Cincinnati, he was on the field last year. In the limited times they put him on the field, they just the fact they went with so much Chase Brown and really didn't give him even a shot, speaks to his talent level at this point. Giddens, I'm not a huge fan of. I think he's mostly going to be purely contingent value behind Jonathan Taylor, who takes on one of those old school Sean Alexander kind of workloads for himself. But yeah, Giddens, I think, would be a smash if Taylor goes down. I just don't think he's useful, if he doesn't go down. Komet gets drafted here, so he will not be part of our 5 tight end build if he went there. Rather pick Malik Washington than Darren Waller? They're different positions. It's not the same debate. But I agree, Malik Washington, viable click. Westbrook Akine still a viable click. They're paying him pretty good money. And we have a 4-4-7-4 build here. I think this 20th pick is just whoever's the best player available. That kind of appeals to me. Don't really care about stacking it up. Just somebody with upside here. Given that people are drafting Tank Dell, who likely will not play a single snap this year. Not a ton of upside left. Marshawn Lloyd is one of my boys. He should be close to getting back to practice. I don't think it's happened yet. Rehab work in a side field is the most recent news actually from today. All right, so that's new. The 2 guys I would take here, Torrey Horton. I don't need the receiver. I think a 5th RB would do better for me. Marshawn Lloyd also starting on the depth chart, RB3 behind Emmanuel Wilson. Wilson's also hurt now, though, so there's really nothing that's changed. Lloyd started camp as RB2. Now he's RB3, but they're both hurt, so whoever gets on the field first will probably reemerge as RB2. But I love Marshawn Lloyd's talent. I'm still going to die on the hill for 16 to 20% exposure this year. So my final team here ends up being a 4-5-7-4. Weird build, but I actually like the way it came out a good amount. Definitely unique. We got Trevor Lawrence, Bijan Robinson, Bucky Irving, Bijan, T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton. So we're starting lineup here. I feel really good about with the RBs and receivers. Tight end 1 is Brenton Strange. That's definitely weaker than I want to go, but that's why we took 4 of them. Rome Odunze, David Montgomery, Jordan Mason, Chris Godwin, Rashid Shaheed, Tua Tagovailoa, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Cade Otton, Diami Brown, part of that Jacksonville stack, Darren Waller, part of our Miami stack, Juwan Johnson, not correlated with anything besides Shaheed, And Marshawn Lloyd here because I think he deserves better than being taken for free, the second to last pick in a draft. That was a weird team. I like it. Weird team. Am I still taking Tootin? I've not been a big Tootin guy this entire process. You could take him. He should be priced, though, in my opinion, should be priced more in that Taj Brooks range, 170s, 180s, 190s, and he's not priced there. So for me, if the price isn't right, I usually don't take a guy. I've taken some hedge Tootin before. He's got a lot of voided tackle rate ability, which is something that does matter for me in terms of how I grade out running backs. But I don't think he's good enough for how I view things. But guys, hit that like button, subscribe. I always forget to ask for likes on Stochastic, but please do show some love here. Of course, it's a DFS channel doing great work in the world of DFS every single day, in particular in MLB this time of year. But I'm here doing the best balls best I can for you guys, giving you the information, giving you the game theory in particular as well. I'd hopefully give you a chance at success, in particular on DraftKings, where you do get those free entries and things like that. So hit that like button, subscribe. It goes a long way for me here. Check out my OddsShopper Tails pack as well if you want my rankings, which do work for DraftKings, for Underdog, for drafters as well. And live before lock coming up. Actually, no, live before lock. This is right now. Is that correct? All right, I guess I'm competing against live before lock right now. Weird MLB timing. Okay, well, go watch that then. I assume that's also going on the channel, so check that out. And listen to this video from Greg Ehrenberg talking about all the important stuff in DraftKings Best Ball, because we got some legalese to hit on right now.
It's best ball season, and DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. Enter a lineup in the $15 million best ball contest for just $20, and you'll score another best ball ticket to play free for a share of $15 million, giving you a second chance to win big. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 best ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million and get a second ticket to play free for a share of $15 million. That's two chances to win big without ever setting your lineup again. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions do apply and void where prohibited. One per customer. Enter the Best Ball $15 million headliner contest by September 4th, 2025 to get one bonus entry. $20 entry fee required. Reward expires in 30 days. See terms at DraftKings.com/NFL-best-ball, sponsored by DraftKings.
Let's go down the DraftKings fantasy app right now. Get in there, get your free entry as well when you put in your first one in the Best Ball Milliacre. And shout out to all you guys hanging out. Appreciate Rad asking some questions here. Appreciate Huck as well. Longtime follower of my stuff, but I appreciate the kind words a bunch here. Thank you guys for hanging out. And no matter what you are gambling on, make sure to gamble responsibly, of course. Go play some Best Ball on DraftKings. Go check me out at Splash Play Pod. Tomorrow, drafting again this Millie Maker, drafting Underdog's Best Ball Mania, drafting and Drafters Main Event Championship for $4.5 million in total on stream tomorrow. So that'll be at 12 p.m. for me Eastern time. Check that out. But thanks you guys for watching. Again, there's a lot of competition going on, including on the channel. So go do some MLB stuff right now. Do MLB Live Before Lock with Greg and Eric right now on the exact same channel. I'll see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days and good luck. See you Tuesday, 3 p.m. Bye, guys.